Hello viewers, it's glad to know you're watching your program. It is Economic Insights and I'm your host Paul Kingsley. Now, in continuation with the ongoing reports we are doing on infrastructure development in Nigeria, today we have a man who is contributing in no small way to the development of our infrastructure. He's an indigenous player in the construction industry. I'm talking of Bello Mai. He's the Managing Director, CEO of Mai Consorts Limited. He's going to be giving us their own contributions, the challenges, affecting players in this industry, and also looking at what they have done in the construction industry. It promises to be an interesting conversation. I'll be back after this time out. Thank you.
Mai Consorts Limited has distinguished itself to become one of the leading indigenous companies in Nigeria, providing qualitatively and cost-effective services with special emphasis on building construction. In spite of the many challenges facing indigenous companies, the company was deliberately incorporated with a view to fulfilling growing need for integrated and highly specialized engineering and allied services. Bello Mai is the Managing Director CEO.
Mai Consorts Limited was incorporated in July 2000, immediately after my youth corps. I've decided then not to look for a job with the government. I want to be on my own. The experience I had was during my university days. I have a brother who is actually in the business of engineering, civil engineering in particular, for a very long time in Kaduna. So I have been practicing engineering since I was in 200 level in school. I don't go anywhere during my breaks. I'm always in his office. I have been with him. He was in charge of the Ports Authority building, now the defense headquarters, the ship house, NEPA headquarters, so many other projects in Abuja. So since then I've decided, look, I think I don't need to work for anybody. I should find a way of really breaking into, I know it's going to be a difficult thing, but I've made up my mind that I want to be on my own. I want to be an employer of labor, not an employee. So that's the whole idea of Mai Consorts. Now, Mai Consorts is actually into design, construction, and other engineering aspects like roads, bridges, water supply, and so many other engineering aspects. Now, we do design, we do construction. And when we started, actually, it was difficult knowing things in this country. Then I was a young boy just into the market. When things are tough, I had to even start a block molding industry before the business, because you are not known in the business. So it will take some time before really people start to know what you are up to, what you can do, so that they can trust you and give you jobs to do. So basically, Mai Consorts has been in that business of construction, design of different type of structures. We've been into residential, commercial, industrial structures, and like I said, also some roads, bridges, and stuff like that. It's been quite challenging. The major issue, the major concern, the major challenge is actually getting people to know that you can do it. It's very important because that's the only way you can get jobs. So how do you do it? It means somebody has to trust you. You have to start somewhere. And luckily, one or two people decided to give us that try, and since then it's been good. Not very good anyway, because there's nothing you do that you don't meet with challenges, especially dealing with government institution in particular. I have had so many challenges with works I've done with the government. I have projects that I have done that are yet to be paid up till now. At some point I decided I'm not even going to take up any project from the government, especially the ministries. I would rather, whatever small I will get, go with the private people and some corporate organizations. That one I know I'm working, I'm going to be paid. Unlike some ministries that I have had some experiences with, it's been quite challenging. Now, apart from getting people to trust you, the other issue is actually funding. You might get work that you need some resources. Now, banks these days hardly give you, especially somebody that's just starting up, nobody will trust you to give you money because you tell him that you have this project, you need funds so that you can be able to actualize it and pay him back. It's really a big challenge. But thank God, we are where we are today because we have surmounted those challenges.
Mai Consorts Limited is highly equipped with a dynamic management and technical team with years of corporate and field experience to undertake and execute any given task in its field of endeavors.
The projects I have done that really distinguished us, the Mudranatu House in Maitama is a 5-story building. We did the design and supervision. The School of Excellence in Zaria is a CBN funded project. It's quite a big project, about 6 billion. We were consultants to the contractor, and CBN projects, they have some minimum standards that you can't go below, and the challenges were enormous. You have to be battling with them. This is not good, you need to change this, you need to do that, and all that. But thank God, we've seen ourselves through.
Over the years, indigenous contractors in Nigeria have recorded a low level of participation and have often been sidelined in large-scale constructive activities.
Now, why I said not at all is the expatriates come in not just as professionals, they also come with a capital base that is so good enough that they can go into anything. The indigenous contractor will have to struggle to see how he can get the funding that he needs to be in the same level, or at least close to those foreign firms that come in to compete with us. Now, like I said earlier, getting funds as an indigenous company is a very difficult thing, and the challenges also is that the players out there that are supposed to give us the level playing field so that we can, they don't trust that we can. They don't trust that we can. So they don't even give you a chance. So if you don't give me a chance to try, there's no way you can say that I cannot do what the expatriates can do. So it's not been level at all. It's not been a level playing, and then the policies of the government too is not helping the situation. Thank God, at least the president has signed a presidential order, I think recently, that is trying to empower indigenous companies like us so that we can compete favorably with the foreign companies. It's not an issue of competence most times. The issue is, I'm sorry to say, but some of the indigenous companies, they don't really look at the holistic aspect of the project. Somebody gets money now for mobilization. He now instead of putting the money into what it is meant for, he now go into maybe diverting the money to something else. And at the end of the day, the project will suffer. Generally in a project, the most critical aspect of the project is the finishing, the tail end of the project. Now, if you have squandered the money that was meant for the project at the beginning of the project, you definitely will have challenges at the end of it. Now, it's not only about you not being able to meet up with the time frame, you'll also start compromising on the quality of work and all that. So what the governor said, yes, it's true, but it's not all the indigenous companies. And the other thing is that some of the indigenous companies don't really want to employ the right manpower so that they can be able to really bring some pool of professionals that can handle big projects that are being thrown to them. Then the other issue is that of corruption in the system. Now, what I mean by corruption in the system is you might get a job, just like the governor said he gave them, but the other problem is not from the contractor, it's also from the governor that gives him that project. He might come around or through his cronies to ask for something out of that. And once you do that, number one, the contractor has been compromised. You are also compromised because there are things he will do that you cannot question him because he knows that he gave you something out of that money. And that something will definitely affect the overall delivery of that project. So yes, he might be right. He's also wrong because some of the problems are actually not from the indigenous companies. They're actually from also the key players that are supposed to be in charge of those things, like the government, the professional bodies and all that. There are a lot of things that goes with this, in the construction industry. It's not just about I as a contractor and the client. There are regulatory authorities who are supposed to be regulating and overseeing all that we do to make sure that we are doing the right thing. But the corruption has also eaten deep into that system too. The professional bodies too, instead of them to keep an eye and see how we can work together, those in the industry, the regulators, the approving authorities, because all of us have to work together for us to be able to deliver a project. If I do my design or you give me a contract, the design has to go through some stages. The approving authority needs to vet those drawings. Sometimes they don't have the right manpower to do that. They are not experienced enough, so they can just pass anything that comes their table. And that's why we have issues of building collapse and all that. Secondly, they might also compromise. You want a drawing, you want your submissions to be approved. Maybe instead of the process taking maybe 1 month or 2, you might decide to, okay, I want this thing in 1 week, and then they collect something and then they give that to you, but at the end of the day, they might not have taken their times to go through what they need to do, so that at the end of the day, once they give you that approval, it's something that you can put out there and then you don't have any issues at the end of the day. But when there's a compromise, anything can happen.
Indigenous contractors have not had a fair share of major construction activities in the country, as they are often awarded to their foreign counterparts, whom are considered more technically and managerially more superior and efficient in funds acquisition and project execution.
Partly yes, but I think we are coming there. Yes, some of us in the industry lack the capacity and the experience in project management, and some of them are not even willing to really acquire the skills of project management for them to be able to play big time in the industry. So I don't want to say that we lack project management skill completely, but of course there's a lot of room for improvement. Basically, one of the major factors responsible for project failures is lack of funds. Lack of funds from both the contracting authority and also the contractor. The contracting authority will mobilize you for a project. Along the way, maybe you went to the bank or elsewhere to get funds so that you continue with that project to a certain level before you get paid. And after putting in your money, you realize that they will keep telling you stories that there's no money to give you, but you should just continue with the project. You know, at some point, of course, you have to abandon the project. Then there's this issue of change in government. Somebody will just come in and decide, this guy is doing a railway. The railway is not what I'm interested in. I want to do a new project entirely, and that leads to a lot of abandonment of projects. Not that the contractor is not willing to continue with the project. No, the guy at the helm of affairs now is not interested in that project. He wants to initiate his own project, and of course the other project will be abandoned. Now, some project failed because of so many factors too. I don't know if the failure you're talking about is in terms of maybe collapse of the buildings or things like that. Like the issue of building collapse, it all boils down also to the key players in the industry. The designer, if his design is faulty, of course during implementation you are going to have issues. The approving authority, there are some basic things that they need to insist on when you make a submission for approval. Now, except for Abuja, I don't know elsewhere that I've done some project. Nobody asks you for an EIA on a project you want to do. Nobody asks you for a soil test to determine the capacity of the soil, that is the soil bearing capacity, to be able to carry that structure you want to put on. Now, if you don't know what capacity you have a 10-story building you want to put up in a place, and then you don't know what type of soil you have, what strength the soil has that can take that structure, of course you are bound to have failures. Then the other issue is quackery in the industry. There are a lot of quacks that call themselves engineers, architects, and all that are all around the system, that you say because they are cheap, people go for them rather than looking for the right professionals who have the requisite experience to be able to do these things. Of course, they have to pay us. Thank God this government at least is trying. They've been paying backlog of monies owed contractors, and I like one of the things that they do, because Rather than you losing the whole of your money, it's better for you to sit down and negotiate and get part of the money and then move on. So that's what this present government is doing. They will call you, sit down, okay, your project was valued at so at inception. You've done so much of it, but you see, we want to pay you, but we don't have that much to pay you now. Can we sit down and negotiate this thing and move on? Of course, I'll be ready for that. If I look at the value of my money in 3 years back, now is nothing. But it's better for me to get whatever I want to get and move on, rather than waiting and insisting that I be paid what is due to me. So the government should try as much as possible to verify genuine contractors, verify projects that have been executed or still in the stages, process of being executed, and look at the debts owed them and try as much as possible, because that's the only way the indigenous companies will grow. The foreign companies can even get funding from their own countries. The Chinese companies are doing that. They come in, they come with a proposal, they want to do railway for you, they'll bring 80% of the funds from their own bank, and then you pay only 20%. So if the indigenous company doesn't have this kind of support from the government, of course it will be difficult. I know government too has issues of trusting the indigenous contractors with some of the monies, so that you don't just collect money and disappear. It's a very good thing, but it has a lot of, not loopholes, but it needs to be refined. They've made procurement process very cumbersome. You will apply for BPP registration. They tell you, okay, you've been approved, but you are not going to be given a certificate until after so time. They must specify a time, but that time usually, I don't know what's happening. You have to be renewing that BPP temporary certification every 6 months. That's one. Two, you have to be paying, you have to be renewing all the other papers, ITF, NSITF, Financial Reporting Council, SCUMOL, that's the, what do you call this, EFCC wing that handles things like that. So the process is actually cumbersome, and it's a good thing that we have the Procurement Act, which is at least streamlining the way things are being done. But the BPP should go out there and really look at how, because there are a lot of loopholes and people are using those loopholes. One of the things that we experience with the BPP is that I think there's some kind of a clique within. You will do all the due diligence as a contractor, bid for a project. Somebody in there has all the details of your own bid, and he has a preferred person for that bid. He will go around, he knows everybody else's bid value. He'll go and give him to court for something low. He might not be able to deliver, but what is happening is he will be pre-qualified, he will get the job, give him whatever cut he want to give him. At the end of the day, he cannot deliver on the project. So that's part of the problem. I think the BPP should look inward. They have field officers in all the agencies and departments of government, but keeping them there for too long is also another problem, because they connive with people in the system so that they circumvent some of these things. Well, the youths, like I told you earlier, the youths of nowadays are just not ready to learn. get yourself busy, learn a skill, be a seller, not a buyer. I mean, people graduate from the university, sit down and be waiting that I want to get employed. There are so many things they can do. The farming, you can sell, just like I said, be a seller, not a buyer. You can go to the market with 5,000, buy something, start. That is entrepreneurship. Start something and grow. But they just want to get money, I mean, just big money without starting somewhere. So the other thing is, I mean, whatever you know that you can do well, love that thing, work on that, and be passionate about it. Once you are passionate about a thing and you love doing that thing, you will definitely not look at, okay, I'm waiting for Mr. A, B, C to give me employment. I'll try to use that my passion. Maybe I will need somebody to push me, but whatever it is that I need the push for, I should be able to at least start somewhere. So don't be lazy. Don't grow up, because most of our youths nowadays, they still think that, okay, I'm a graduate and I'll remain under my father's, my parents' stipends or whatever. No, and the parents too don't help them, because you are supposed to be an adult at that point in time. You're supposed to be on your own. I decided to be on my own immediately after my youth corps. It's difficult, of course, nothing comes easy, but once you have made up your mind, this is what I want to do, go for it. Love that thing you're going to do, whatever the challenge, move on with it. You will definitely surmount that problem and be wherever you want to be. I'm an engineer by training, married with 4 kids. I'm into farming, like I said. Thank God Baba is encouraging everybody to go to farm. So it's another thing the youth should explore. You can do so many things. So I graduated from Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, Bachelor's of Engineering Civil. I went to the UK for my master's, and I'm back. I've been operating Mai Consorts even when I was out for my master's. So thank God we are here.
Well, I must say this is a fine place to leave it. Thank you so much for making our time to do with us out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate your contribution on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.